Okay, thank you. Welcome, everyone. I'd like to call this meeting to order. I call this October 21st, 2020 meeting of the Albuquerque-Bernalillo County Water Utility Authority to order. Trustee Rayala is excused. All members are present this evening via video conference. So welcome everyone. And we have a special guest this evening, Mayor Tim Keller is here. So welcome, Mayor. So,
great to be here, filling in.
In that light, we will move on to a moment of silence and the Pledge of Allegiance. And if, Mayor, you want to lead us, that would be awesome.
Wow, you really put me on the spot. So how long is our moment of silence?
As long as you want to, just briefly.
Okay, gotcha. All right, let's take a brief moment of silence. Okay. All right, and then please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance of the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God,
indivisible, with liberty and justice
for all.
Thank you, Mayor. Appreciate. See how hard our work is? You didn't realize.
Yeah, no, but can we salute the flag? I salute the flag of the
So, as posted on our website and noted on our published Water Authority agenda, this meeting is being held video conference. The Water Authority accepted general public comment and comment on the meeting's specific agenda items in written form via email through 4 p.m. today, and these comments were distributed to all board members. So we will now move on to item 3, approval of minutes. I make a motion to approve the September 23rd, 2020 minutes. Is there a second? Commissioner O'Malley, second the motion. Ms. Carrion, roll call.
Counselor Davis.
Yes.
Counselor Jones.
Yes.
Mayor Keller.
Yes.
Vice Chair O'Malley. Chair O'Malley.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Chair Pena. Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah. Yes.
Chair Pena. Commissioner Piscotti.
Yes.
Commissioner Quesada.
Yes.
That passes unanimously.
Thank you. So now we'll move on to proclamations and awards. We have Mr. David Morris, Imagine a Day Without Water proclamation.
David, you're up. Yes, we're having some technical difficulties. David, go ahead and.
All right. Madam Chair, members of the board, I'm David Morris, Public Affairs Manager for the Water Authority. Every year, the U.S. Water Alliance asks Americans to take one day to imagine a day without water, and this is that day. Last year, you may recall, we celebrated with cupcakes and presentations by school children. This year, the reading of a proclamation will have to suffice. That job has fallen to me. Had I known it was going to fall to me, I might have written a shorter proclamation. So please bear with me. A proclamation. Whereas the pipes, wells, diversion works, treatment facilities, and other infrastructure necessary to supply some 650,000 residents with safe drinking water, reuse water, and wastewater services is vital to the very existence of Albuquerque and Bernalillo County. And whereas a well-maintained water and sewer system is a key element in protecting public health during the coronavirus pandemic, and whereas it is incumbent upon us to remind political leaders at all levels that investment in water infrastructure is necessary to ensure public health and future economic growth, and whereas even one day without access to clean drinking water would have devastating effects on businesses, families, and public safety in our community. And whereas October 21st has been designated by the U.S. Water Alliance as Imagine a Day Without Water, a national day of advocacy highlighting the critical importance of infrastructure investment to ensure public access to clean, reliable drinking water, be it resolved by the Water Authority that the utility hereby recognizes the importance of educating the public and policymakers about the important role of water and sewer infrastructure and the value of water through our participation in the National Imagine a Day Without Water campaign. Thank you. I would stand for any questions.
Thank you, David. Is there any questions? Seeing none, we're going to move on to Mr. Mark Sanchez for the National Association of Clean Water Agencies Platinum Excellence in Management Award.
Madam Chair, members of the board, we were honored by the National Association of Clean Water Agencies by this award, which cited excellence in the area of governance, continuous improvement process, customer engagement, conservation success, long-term planning, sustainable business model, environmental stewardship, AAA rating, and excellence in our utility operations in providing clean water, wastewater treatment, reuse, and aquifer storage and recovery. This award will be presented by a virtual ceremony October 28th. I would also point out we're one of the few utilities in the country that's received a double platinum award from two of the large water associations. It's a tribute to our employees, the board, and our community. So I thank you for your support.
Thank you, Mr. Sanchez. If you can close the presentation, Luz. Thank you. I just want to say, I think we end up saying this every year because you're always receiving several awards, and we can't say it enough. We just appreciate your leadership and all your team and all the work that they do to give the citizens of Albuquerque and Bernalillo County, you know, just good drinking water. And we really appreciate, you know, how you always think outside the box in terms of reuse, re-injection, you know, what you've done with the Rio Chama water. So, you know, just really appreciate all the work that you and all your staff have done over the years. So thank you. And
the board is part of that team, so we thank you very much.
Thank you, Mark. So now we'll move on to Utility of the Future Today recognition. Miss Elizabeth Anderson.
Madam Chair, members of the board, this is a recognition for the Utilities of the Future Today in the area of watershed management. This is an award that the Water Authority has received previously. In other areas, the award, it focuses on innovation and sustainability. And watershed stewardship and watershed management is one of the foundations of our Water 2120 plan. So it's an important cornerstone. And among other things, the Water Authority is invested in about $1 million over a 5-year period in watershed management through the Rio Grande Water Fund to reduce risks of upstream fires. Again, this is an award that's recognizing just excellent stewardship of our watersheds, and I stand for any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Anderson. Lucy can do it. Thank you. Appreciate it again. Again, thank you guys for all the work you do. It goes recognized. It doesn't go unrecognized by all of us in the community. So thanks again. So next we have public comment. And I don't think we're taking public comment like, I guess everyone received their packet of all the comments. So then we will move on to announcements and communication. Our next scheduled meeting would be November 25th, 2020. But seeing as it is the day before Thanksgiving, that meeting will be canceled. And our next meeting will be December 9th at 5 p.m. via video conference. Technical Customer Advisory Committee vacancy. There is a resource economic vacancy on the Technical Customer Advisory Committee. If the board members have any nominations, please direct them to the online application at the Water Authority's website at www.abcwua.org. And finally, we have customer conversations. The Water Authority is pleased to announce that it is taking its nationally recognized Customer Conversations program online this fall. Virtual Zoom workshops are planned for the November 10th, 12th, and 14th. The topic will be Beyond the Numbers, watering recommendations for desert-friendly landscapes. At this point, just a few openings remain. Customers can visit abcwua.org for more information. So next, we are on item 7, introduction of legislation. We have 2024 authorizing an agreement for the water and sewer service for Paradise North. Ms. Elizabeth Anderson once again.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. This is a development agreement introduction. The final action is scheduled for December 9th. This is a development that's a mixed use consisting of multifamily, residential, and commercial. It's located on the southeast corner of McMahon Boulevard and Unser Boulevard in the city of Albuquerque, but outside of the Water Authority's adopted service area. The property lies in the pressure zone 3W in the Corrales Trunk. They're seeking water and wastewater service contingent upon developer extending public water lines and sanitary sewer from existing infrastructure. All services provided within the development will be subject to the current utility expansion charges and water resources charges. And I stand for any questions.
Thank you. Are there any initial questions? No? Okay, so then we'll move on to consent agenda. There is none. And now we are on item A, approvals. R 2022, authorizing the Water Utility Authority to submit an application for funding to the Water Trust Board for Tahajali Water Supply Pipeline. And that is Mr. Mark Sanchez.
Madam Chair, members of the board, this resolution would authorize us to submit an application in the amount of $4.9 million to the State Water Trust Board to pay for the construction of a conveyance line to the Navajo chapter of the Tahajali. The background for this project is Tahajali has suffered the loss of 5 drinking water wells in the last few years. We have been tanking water to them to provide for their basic needs. The Navajo Nation has mostly reached out and indicated if we could provide a conveyance line to fill the reservoir for their basic needs, they would provide the water. So our role would simply be conveying Navajo Nation water to their chapter, and they would provide for the funding, the ongoing treatment, and the maintenance of that conveyance line. This would not extend service to anyone. It would simply fill the reservoir at Tahajali for their basic needs. And this would be at no net expense to the Water Authority or the ratepayers. I stand for any questions.
Is there any questions?
Madam Chair?
Commissioner Casala.
Yeah, I just was interested in the water. Do they have the water agreement already in place with the Navajo Nation?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Casada, there is a draft that is being developed. In no way would the Water Authority commit to this project without a commitment for water. So without that commitment, there would be no water in that conveyance line.
So you think that should be coming rather soon then?
I believe so.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Sanchez. I appreciate your work.
Is there any other questions? It looks like Commissioner O'Malley and then Mayor Keller and Councilor Davis.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to thank the Mark Sanchez. I know that the state, is interested in particularly the governors. I know she's very interested in helping the tribes in getting this much needed resource. The Water Trust Trust Board is, set up for just this sort of thing to help communities that are in need. And so, I really appreciate the application moving forward. And of course, I'm wholeheartedly in support of it. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner O'Malley. Mayor Keller. And again, I want to
Sure.
welcome you. It's really nice to have the mayor. I don't know when the last time the mayor came to the Water Authority meeting, but appreciate you being here.
Oh, it means a lot, and it's very good to see everyone's faces, by the way. I know some of us haven't seen each other in a long time. I think from my end, too, I just wanted to say that, this issue has come up. It's obviously, I know a little bit about it. I mean, it's a very old issue, goes back to like 2000, and then we kind of had this framework in 06. And, back when I was a state auditor, we used to always criticize the Water Trust Board for not spending money fast enough. And one of the things that they always told me was people aren't asking for it. I mean, they're actually not going through the appropriate steps that are qualified and, meeting all the criteria to do it. And so I think this is a great example, just looking at it on that end, where this is the kind of project that the Water Trust Board is designed to fund. And with Mark and his team and their diligence, they can actually push forward that application and so forth in a way that meets the engineering criteria and so forth. So I want to thank the Water Authority team for doing that, working on the application. And, as a city, I realize that for the city of Albuquerque, it's a little bit beyond our boundaries, but we do have a Native American advisory committee that we kind of reconstituted a couple of years ago. And the president of To'Hajiilee actually sits on that by ordinance. And so I want to thank council for reestablishing that ordinance too. But, this has been an issue that I have just heard loud and clear, and especially even recently on Indigenous Peoples Day, that we've just got to do all we can to get water out there. And being, the sort of large entity neighbor, I think it is a great opportunity for us to help bring folks together to make it happen. So the city of Albuquerque is very much in support of this, well, at least the administration, and we are sending just a little letter to make that of note. So appreciate that. Director Sanchez will have that. And really appreciate the county's effort for, obviously working on this for many years, but just the renewed effort to get all the easement rights, to get the surface rights, to use condemnation if it's needed, et cetera. Just want to appreciate the county for continuing to move forward. And I think I would also just mention that this is something that, again, I know one of the individuals mentioned kind of the governor in stance there. This is what we're supposed to do. And this is what a great way for the Water Authority to help out. And so I'm just really honored that we can support this.
Thank you, Mayor. Councillor Davis.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And yeah, let me just echo the state sentiments from the commissioner and for the mayor. I just want to acknowledge and say thanks so much to Mark and your team and all of the Water Authority team who's really worked hard over the last year or so to ensure that the chapter continues to have access to water with trucks and to work on this solution to make this long term. That, as the chair said earlier, a lot of that work does go unacknowledged, but we have seen it, including in the pictures in the events that I saw with Commissioner O'Malley delivered water and pinto beans and other supplies last week to help the community as they're still trying to get through the hurdles to have access to long-term, clean, permanent water, safe water. So thank you for that. And I want to acknowledge Commissioner O'Malley, Representative Garcia from out there, and others that have really done a lot of work to keep this issue front and center and to stand up for the people who do need clean, safe water. It's amazing to me that here in the middle of the 21st century in Bernalillo County, we still have communities on the Southwest Mesa and on the west part of our county, and even some in the East Mountains who don't have access to reliable clean water every day. But I really do appreciate the folks that are working for this, and I hope this comes to a resolution very quickly. Thank you, Commissioner, for your leadership. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Davis. Commissioner Piscotti, did you have your hand raised? I apologize if you didn't.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to add a few things in especially now it's urgent as a public health crisis. As a quality of life issue, this should have been, I think, handled many years ago, but we might as well just get it done now. So I really thank everybody who has been supporting this effort to get water out to Tahajali as soon as possible, before the end of this year, hopefully. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner O'Malley?
Thank you. And I was remiss, and, of course, thanking the other commissioners as well. Obviously, this is my district, so, I brought attention to this issue. And, but, we needed the support of the Blue Commission to move forward, so I appreciate that. And I was remiss in also thanking, and I know Councillor Davis, thank you for your words also, and it was reminding me that I was remiss in also saying that there was strong support from Representative Harry Garcia out there, and also they wrote letters of support as well. And then another person who's been really helping us on the legislative level has been Senator Martin Heinrich. So we have had a lot of support, and we continue to have a lot of support. And I think that it's very important for the village to know that they aren't forgotten, and that we do remember, and we're doing all we can to help them. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Are there any additional questions? So I'll wrap it up before we take a vote by just saying appreciate you, Commissioner O'Malley, the rest of the commission, Quesada and Piscotti, for supporting this effort. I just think it's important. I know that there was some contention around it surrounding some other issues, but I think it was always everyone's intention to make sure that the water was delivered and got there to Tahajali. So, I really congratulate everyone for trying to make that happen as we move forward. Councillor Davis mentioned about the East Mountain and about the Southwest Mesa. And I really think that, the next conversation that we should have, when we're talking about quality of life and the residents of our city and county, that we do begin to look at these areas, because as you know, Pajarito Mesa, although there's water there, and I know there's issues in terms of getting the water to each house because there's no roads or anything like that, but I think we can improve in our efforts of making sure that, we look at the long-term fix for that community and in the East Mountains as we move forward when we're talking about water and quality of life. So yeah, I look forward to seeing this completed. And with that, seeing that there's no more questions, I think I made a motion. I don't know if there was a second.
Second.
Then there's, I'll take that from Commissioner O'Malley. And Ms. Carrion, you're up. Roll call.
Councillor Davis?
Yes.
Councillor Jones?
Yes.
Mayor Keller? Is muted.
You're muted,
Yep.
Mayor.
My bad. Yes.
Vice Chair O'Malley?
Yes.
Chair Pena?
Yes.
Commissioner Piscotti?
Yes, absolutely.
Commissioner Quesada?
Yes.
That passes.
Congratulations, everyone. So we are now on R 2023, authorizing the removal of certain uncollectible accounts from the Albuquerque Bernalillo County Water Utility Authority accounts receivable records FY 2017 and prior. Mr. Stan Alred.
Madam Chair, members of the board, this is not as exciting as the last item, but it's $64,000 a write-off. We're actually can write off everything that's over 4 years old. We have 15 accounts, primarily that are wastewater only accounts, that make up about 58,000 of the 64, and those accounts are probably between 10 to 12 years past due. There's a couple wastewater accounts in there as well, but those are homes that have been condemned by the city and nobody lives there anymore. So we're allowed to do this. They're all past 4 years old by state statute. Staff recommends approval, and I stand for any questions.
Are there any questions? Being none. There's a second by Commissioner O'Malley. Ms. Carrion.
Councillor Davis? That was
Yes.
Councillor Jones?
Yes.
Mayor Keller,
Yes.
Vice Chair O'Malley,
Yes.
Chair Peña,
Yes.
Commissioner Piscotti,
Yes.
Commissioner Quesada.
Yes.
That passes.
Thank you. Now we are in other business. OB 2012 Water Authority update on the Kirtland Air Force Base bulk fuels facility project. Miss Diane Agnew.
You're having some technical difficulties with Diane. Give me 1 second. I'm sorry.
Let me know if I need to move on to the next one.
Can we go ahead and move on to Carlos's presentation?
Sure. OB 2014 Customer Demand on Drought Report, Mr. Bustos.
Carlos, you're on. Carlos, can you hear us? Carlos? Carlos? Give me 1 second.
Okay. Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board, Mayor Tim Keller. Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. Cool. Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board, Mayor Tim Keller. Thank you for joining us. This is the customer demand and drought report. I'm Carlos Bustos, Mayor. I'm the Water Conservation Program Manager. Before moving into the drought report and action plan, I'll bring you up to date with current water demand. Please, next slide. Great. So, in your top left chart, you're seeing water demand through September, and we're looking at 3 years. And in the lower right part, you're looking at total consumptive for the same time period between January and end of September. Consumptive is considered to be outdoor usage. As you can tell, there's a lot to talk about here, and I'll jump right in it. 2020 total rainfall to date is about 40 inches below normal for the Albuquerque area. So that starts telling the story of this increased demand. The last time I counted, Albuquerque hit 18 record heat days this irrigation season, and 2020 is amongst the warmest and driest years in the last 10 years. Water demand is higher in the last 2 years, particularly residential usage is up by 11%, and commercial usage is down by 8%. Overall outdoor usage is exceeding prior 2 years. So I'll let you know some of my observations. And the first one is that residential use is higher mainly because we're spending a lot more time in our homes due to the pandemic, and that's advisable. So our yards have become more valuable. Our landscapes have become more valuable to us. They have become our outings, and we are investing more in our landscapes. And this is looking at the landscape and industry and how much they're thriving this year in regards to increased sales and services. And given the type of weather we've had, we're watering more. My second observation is to challenge the large landscape managers are facing with having to juggle more demand while having to spread staff and resources to best respond to the pandemic. The city, APS, the county are all included within this and are facing these challenges. And as I mentioned, 2020 temperature has been 6 to 12% above average for most of the year. Nevertheless, Water 2120 plan for increased demand. And as we start to wind down the season, we're starting to see that average demand is ramping down to winter levels. And with that said, we're set to meet our EPCD goals of 127 EPCD to end the year. However, this year is a bit different for us because as we begin and enter the colder months and winter season, please, next slide. The northern part of the state is facing extreme drought. And the county, Bernalillo County, has entered severe drought conditions, which means we're moving into a customer alert system, better known as the drought advisory. It's an education system. And a drought advisory is declared whenever the majority of Bernalillo County reaches stage 3 as declared and defined by the National Weather Service. The drought advisory alert system does not require any mandatory conservation restrictions. Instead, it focuses on increased education. Current water use reduction strategies and campaign are aimed at reducing outdoor water usage, and these reductions are more likely to occur during the irrigation season. But even as we move away from the irrigation season, as part of the drought advisory, we're offering and will continue to advertise more strongly our conservation education message and services. The drought advisory also looks at our EPCD goals and our annual operation plan. And even with the challenging year we're experiencing, we're set to meet both our EPCD goals, and because AOP anticipated using more groundwater this year, we're also set to meet those goals as well. Next slide, please. But the outlook is not looking good. And it's looking like we're going to be facing a really dry winter. And because of that, regardless if the customers are already ramping down usage, and we may not have great opportunities to make huge reductions, we're still implementing strategies. And we want to make sure that we monitor this change in drought conditions because we take to heart our responsibility to serve our customers. And we know these are puzzling times, and we want to make sure that customers can trust us even in times of dry winter. Next slide, please. So normally we will start to wind down our conservation presence in the winter season. Instead, we're going to continue the message as is. We were moving into with the responsibility of making sure that the investments that the residential folks have done in their landscapes are taken care of, particularly if they have planted any trees. So we'll continue to offer 505 outside monthly newsletter. And those topics will be around how to take care of your landscape in times of drought, how to make sure you're watering efficiently. We got 2 bill inserts planned out, one for November that's already in the works and coming out soon, to advise customers to winterize their systems and continue to ramp down that watering, along with another bill insert that's coming in December with a continual message to winterize your system and discontinue watering as soon as we get that first freeze. The other thing we're doing is that we're going to continue our water use compliance activities. The only activity that does not come into effect is the time of day, but we'll continue overflow and overspray activities. We're going to be continue offering the irrigation efficiency consultations, bump up our smart technology rebates to improve efficiency. And as part of this long-term conservation goals, we're also having customer conversations this November. And right now they're booked. We have almost 200 customers signed up. And those are specifically going to be on the topic of generating the next recommendations, the next watering recommendations. Those are the watering recommendations that are going to help us drive the process, not only in times of droughts, but throughout the next 100 years. I'm sure somebody will update them before. The last thing we're doing, and the most important, is that we're preparing just in case we move into other drought conditions and we start out the early spring with severe or extreme drought conditions. We're going to have a drought action plan ready in place to assure that we manage achieving our EPCD goals for next year. And more importantly, help our customers maintain their landscape while watering efficiently. All these strategies are part of the long-term approach to improving outdoor efficiency and make our landscapes more resilient. And that's my presentation. So I stand for questions.
Thank you, Mr. Bustos. Does anyone have any questions? Any questions? No. Thank you. Yeah, it's an interesting time. No water. No water.
It is.
Yeah,
Yep.
it may, but you never know. Things can change. So thank you, Mr. Bustos. Next we have OB 2012 Water Authority update on Kirtland Air Force Base bulk fuels facility project. Diane Agnew.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board. I appreciate the opportunity to present tonight. I apologize for WebEx apparently kicked Stephanie Stringer and I off at the same time, so may it be smooth sailing from here. I just to introduce myself, I work for the Water Authority as the environmental manager. One of the main tasks I've been assigned is source water protection, and under that umbrella really is tracking of the Kirtland jet fuel leak. My history in this project is actually, I've been working on it in various forms for the past 10 years. And so I'm familiar with the ins and outs and ups and downs, and looking forward to giving you an update. So a quick status of the site. I think most of the board members have been on the board or engaged in this project over the past several years. The site really has not left site characterization. The NMED on September 25th approved approved the phase 1 RFI report with modifications. This is a milestone letter from the state on a milestone document. I know if you've been tracking the project, the RFI report is signaled as one of the main steps in the RCRA process for moving into towards final remedy. This letter is a step in that direction, so I would say it does not indicate that we are any closer. There are several data gaps that remain on the site. They're the same data gaps that have remained since the site was first found in 1999, in the 2014 RFI report, and again in the 2017 RFI report. I also want to make note that this letter of approval was sent to the Air Force, but none of the stakeholders received it, nor were we notified about it. I found it during my daily check of the admin records online. There are ongoing remediation actions at the site. The pump and treat measure that began in 2015 continues to operate. And the Air Force is also doing a bioventing pilot test. This is a shallow soil treatment on base in the source area near the former fuel offloading rack where the leak originally occurred. The Air Force continues to do site monitoring. This includes soil vapor and groundwater monitoring. And they also have risk assessments that they submit to the state for groundwater and soil vapor. Noteworthy that the NMED approved just the groundwater portion of the risk assessment. And this year in 2020, they disapproved the soil vapor risk assessment. And really that's something that we've seen in the last 2 years in 2019 and 2020 as the project has returned to the Hazardous Waste Bureau, is that the state has been disapproving several of the reports and documents. And it's not really clear, while the Water Authority agrees that many of these did need to be disapproved, it's not really clear what the path forward is with the site and how we will continue to do make aggressive progress towards cleaning it up. And it's also not clear how the stakeholders will be engaged. This map shows a set of groundwater monitoring wells. At the site, there are over 100 monitoring wells that are used to look at the groundwater conditions at the BFF site. Of those 100 plus wells, 83 of them are assigned to represent the water table. This designation is made by the Air Force. The 83 wells are what they have said represent what's happening right at the water surface in the aquifer. Of those 83 wells, at the end of 2019, 28 of them were submerged. So 34% of their monitoring well network no longer measured at the water table. They were measuring some depth below the water table. We project, based on the trends that we've seen with the rising water table, that in 2 years, just 21 wells of those 83 will be at the water table. In other words, 25% of their network that they say represents the water table will actually be representative of the water table. So this leaves us a big data gap. I'm going to progress to this graphic here. The red wells show those additional wells that will be submerged in 2 years. And really what it shows is in the northern part of the portion of the plume. So up here, this is Louisiana Boulevard. This is the police substation in Cesar Chavez. There's the elementary school right here. That there will be numerous wells that will be submerged and no longer representative of the water table. And in addition to that, there exists a deeper unknown of where the EDB is. In 2015, the Water Authority identified the need to measure EDB at depth in this part of the plume. That need has continued to persist. And it's really a critical piece of the data set in order to have confidence that the plume is not underneath the monitoring well network and being missed somehow. And that way the Air Force designs a final remedy that actually treats the entire groundwater contamination. It also allows and ensures that the Air Force and therefore the Water Authority to have confidence on where the EDB plume is not. As over time, as the groundwater conditions change, it's going to be critical that we know that. I will also take a moment on this graphic to highlight some of the things that the Water Authority has done in the history of this project. For example, our Ridgecrest well field, I'll get my laser pointer going, is up here to the north of the plume. And when the Water Authority noticed that that was the proximity of the plume to our water supply wells, we actually worked with the USGS, we contracted with them directly, and paid for a Sentinel well to be installed over here near the elementary school so that we would have an early indication of any migration of plume towards our water supply wells. That way we could make informed decisions well before the plume got anywhere close to our well field. We then worked with the Air Force to get reimbursed with that. In addition to that USGS well, we also monitor our water supply wells on a monthly basis. That's completely voluntarily on our own dime to make sure that we are monitoring to have confidence in the safety of our water that we're delivering to our customers. So the other thing that the Water Authority has done is we started to realize that this is a fairly massive data set. This is just the network of wells assigned to the water table. You can imagine that when you add in the additional 100 plus wells that represent the entire groundwater network, plus the soil vapor monitoring network, that the database actually becomes pretty sizable. So the Water Authority, we actually have developed our own database. It's comprehensive for the site. It goes all the way back to the first sample that was collected in 2000. And we use that database to be able to do real-time analysis of the quarterly data as it comes in, so that we are seeing what the concentrations are. We can look at the trends and we can see where we need to focus. And that's one of the ways that we've been able to identify that this data gap out here for the EDB plume persists at the water table and also at depth. This map, I think most of you have seen before. This is an overview of the EDB pump and treat system. On this map, over here is the EDB plume. It looks little at this scale. The northernmost extraction well is up here. And this target capture zone delineation is an arbitrary delineation that the Air Force has come up with. This is actually not a regulatory area, but this is a designation they use to focus their pump and treat. This first well here that is underneath my laser pointer, that was the first groundwater extraction well that went in for the pump and treat system. That well was actually placed using Water Authority contractor and groundwater fate and transport modeling. We brought that to a technical working group meeting in 2014, and that was what was ultimately used to site this well and construct it. Since that first well, they put in 3 additional extraction wells. That water is conveyed on base to the treatment system, and then it's routed over to Kirtland 7, where it's injected back into the aquifer, or to the golf course, where it is used to irrigate the greens. They are also in the process of, they've built a new injection well. They're currently testing it. That'll be online by the end of the year. That gives them a backup option in case something were to happen to Kirtland 7 for whatever reason. The Air Force also has a permit to discharge directly into Harris Arroyo. So the Air Force was required by the NMED to follow the EPA guidance for determining the performance of the pump and treat system. So they could show the effectiveness of it to make sure it was actually capturing the plume. And the Air Force reports this in the second quarter and the fourth quarter of every year. We've had many discussions with the state and the Air Force on their model that they're using. And this slide is to highlight one of the main concerns and critical errors in the model from a technical standpoint. The model assumes that all 4 wells operate at full capacity, and that's this blue line here. So the model says the extraction well is running at 24/7, 365 days of a year at the maximum pumping rate. That's the blue bar here. What we are showing in this graphic in the green and the red is what the well's actually pumping at. So you can see in the case of this well here where my laser pointer is, that groundwater extraction well is running the model at this blue rate, but is actually operating at the red bar. The difference between the red and green bars is the green bar is what we get reported by the Air Force every week, and the red bar is what the Water Authority team calculates. We have not been able to recreate the Air Force numbers despite asking questions on their procedure. So we show both numbers for completeness. And this chart here in the right-hand corner, lower right-hand corner, is just another way of looking at it graphically. The blue line is the actual pumping rate, and the red line is the percentage that the Air Force reports that they're operating at, and then the dashed line is the full capacity. So to recap where the site is at, data gaps, we do continue to have a data gap up here in the northern part of the EDB plume. We also have an ongoing data gap as the water continues to rise and monitoring wells are submerged. Another critical data gap is understanding what's happening in the source area. The Air Force did do a fairly extensive effort. They went out into the field, they drilled 9 different well locations with continuous soil cores to really understand what the nature and extent was of the fuel that remained at the site. Unfortunately, there were numerous quality issues. They had many variances from their work plan. And as a result, the Water Authority found that the results were inconclusive. And we actually did write a technical memo that we submitted to the NMED and the Air Force expressing the concerns that we had with the process that was used We believe the data was biased low and they likely missed zones of fuel that remained out in the site. As long as that source is undefined and unremediated, that is a persisting source for groundwater contamination. Shallow soil vapor remains to be a data gap at the site, and that's particularly in the area of Bullhead Park and the open space here. And then there's also a gap in field parameters and fuel contaminants. The Air Force progressively over the last 3 years has changed their sampling technique, and in the process stopped collecting field parameters, and those are crucial in being able to understand degradation rates and how the contaminants will persist over time. Hitting it one more time. So we have multiple lines of evidence that we have a persisting source off base. We have a persisting data gap in the groundwater monitoring wells. The incomplete definition of remaining source is critical. And there really are two opportunities to address this data gap. And I think that's an important part of the discussion, is that it can happen during the RFI. I do believe there are data gaps that are critical to answer during the site investigation characterization phase, because they are inputs into solving the problem and picking the remedy. But there are some of these data gaps that we can push to the corrective measures evaluation so that we can collect that data while the Air Force is also looking at remedy options. And in fact, it's possible that they are collected during implementation of a pilot test of remedy options. So it doesn't have to slow the process down. We can work within the RCRA process, but there are some critical data gaps to make sure that in the end, when the final remedy is recommended and constructed, that it is truly going to treat all the groundwater contamination and the source area contamination and be protective of the drinking water supply. As far as NMED engagement goes, we do have monthly stakeholder meetings. These meetings are set by the Air Force. They set the agenda. They do ask for agenda items. We have historically had, and we in this case, I actually mean stakeholders, have had some challenges getting our agenda items added to the meetings. That's something that Stephanie Stringer from the NMED and I are working together on to solve. The technical working group process, again, that's something that you may all be familiar with. We received a set of steps that the NMED wanted us to follow, us again being stakeholders, in order to request a technical working group. And earlier this year, the city and the county and the Water Authority followed that process to request a technical working group. The request was not granted. We were able to meet with the NMED team for a technical meeting. The Air Force was not in attendance, and it wasn't a deep technical dive into the topics that we had requested. The Water Authority, we continue to submit technical memos and offer to meet with the NMED to discuss our comments and concerns. And then this last one is maybe one that, the more significant change is that the NMED is no longer copying stakeholders on correspondence. So in the past several years, as far as I've been on the project, the Water Authority and the city and the county have at least received a courtesy copy of a letter or a work plan or a report that allowed us to be able to keep up with the project in real time. That no longer happens. And so now we have to check the online admin records. It's a daily task of mine where I log onto the NMED and the Air Force admin records to see what's been posted. But both admin records are now only sporadically updated. In fact, neither one of them have been updated since middle of September, based on my check this morning. And it doesn't appear that all of the documents are being posted to the admin records either, that there's some documents that I've heard be mentioned or discussed in the stakeholder meetings that are not being posted. Other outstanding questions on the project, the budget breakdown. Prior years on this project, the budget has been $22 to $35 million. And then over time, we've seen that budget go down. In 2017, it was $4.3 million. And in FY 2019, it was $1.3 million. We don't know what the FY20 and FY 21 budgets were. I think that's a good question to ask. And then actually, maybe more importantly, not just the budget, but how is that budget being broken down into the tasks? The EDB, like I said, continues to be unknown to the north at depth. And then NMED oversight of field activities and groundwater modeling is a critical question that we have. I know when I was a regulator on this site that I was in the field on a regular basis overseeing the drilling and the field activities just to make sure that the Air Force and their contractor were complying with the work plans that we had approved. I think that's something that's critical because it's too easy for field crews to not completely follow the work plans or make some field decisions that maybe don't hold the intent of the regulator and the site process. And then the last one on here has to do with timelines and deliverables. When the NMED presented to the board in December 2019, they indicated that they were going to begin the corrective measures evaluation in 2021. Again, the CME is a step towards looking at all the possible remedies and picking the final remedy. That is very unlikely to be met. In fact, I don't see a path forward to that. The only way a CME can begin is with the complete approval of an RFI, and the NMED letter in September directed the Air Force to submit a phase 2 RFI, and that has an unknown timeline. So the question of when will CME begin and when will we be getting to a final remedy remains to be a very large question. And with that, I'll stand for questions.
Thank you. Luz, if you can close the presentation. And I think I see Commissioner Piscotty's hand up.
Yes, thank you, Chair.
Stop sharing the screen quick.
First, Diane, I just want to thank you. That was an excellent presentation, very complete. I always truly admire your diligence and hard work on the Kirtland BFF project. And, you know, I just want to remind you that last year we took that epic tour of Kirtland Air Force Base, the Tijeras Arroyo, because we really wanted, as a new commissioner, I wanted to get firsthand experience of what was going on there and what might go on in the future. So I found that to be very valuable. And then we attended the EPA meetings, and my office sent a letter to the EPA asking for certain things regarding data and modeling. I believe also Commissioner Casada had sent a similar letter. And so I just want to say that if there are a lot of gaps in data that I saw in your presentation. If there's anything that you need, please do not hesitate to reach out to my office. This is a critically important issue, and I am happy to support you in any way, writing letters or doing whatever I can to make sure that everything is going the way it should for a beneficial outcome. So thank you, and do feel free to reach out at any time for any kind of support.
Thank you very much, Commissioner.
Thank you, Commissioner Piscotty. Anyone else have any questions, comments? Mayor Keller.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. And, you know, it's interesting. This is like, there's a lot of PTSD type issues. I mean, I remember when many of us when we just discovered this back when I was the state senator for the area. And, you know, certainly what you're sharing, one, just really appreciate given the update. And two, you know, just a very interesting ebb and flow of disclosure and cooperation. And you know, it's actually been now through 3 different governors in terms of the state sort of angle on this. And of course, I don't know, half a dozen base commanders. So, you know, it's, I mean, there's like, I have 1,000 questions, but also maybe I'll just ask 1 or 2. I guess one is, who's the lead contractor now? I know early on that was an issue and it was swapped out. So who's the lead and how long have they been the lead?
Madam Chair, Mayor Keller, the contractor, I believe, is currently primarily EA Engineering. That's actually another interesting change on the project. I believe that, as far as my memory goes, and I think you and I share about the same time frame of familiarity with the project, the contractor was always in the room. They were in the room, they were able to answer questions, they were able to provide technical expertise. They are not allowed to attend meetings at all anymore. So my answer is based purely on the few documents that I can get, that I'm seeing, and who they're prepared by. As of 2019, I believe Sundance Consulting was also working on the project. And I've heard occasionally AFLM, formerly known as CB&I, formerly known as Shaw, mentioned in meetings, but I don't know the answer with confidence.
Hmm. And then who is our point of contact at the Air Force Base? And I guess just a little bit of history and the evolution there. Like, has that changed in the last few years? And where is that at now?
It has, Madam Chair, Mayor Keller, it has changed quite a bit. So currently all questions, requests need to be routed through Kate Linus, the highly qualified expert that the Air Force had hired for this project. So she is the single point of contact. Before her, I believe everybody on the board may remember Dr. Bodor. She was from AFCEC, who is actually who contracts the work and does the project management and works with the contractor. She and AFCEC were leading the project and were the points of contact. They are not attending meetings either. So that's a shift in the last 2 to 3 years. Before that, it was mostly local installation people, and even then, I think there's one local installation person that attends the meetings that I attend, but it's mostly Kate Linus.
Thank you for sharing that. And is there a why aren't we sort of getting the info automatically that we used to? I mean, what do you think? Like, is that deliberate? Hey, we're just not including you, or I was just really surprised to hear that.
Madam Chair, Mayor Keller, the Air Force was including stakeholders on their correspondence and documents, and I believe that they stopped when the NMED stopped. I know, and Stephanie can address this better, I know that the Hazardous Waste Bureau has expressed that copying stakeholders is not something that they typically do, and that it would be too cumbersome to do it. I guess I hold the position that this project is critical. The Water Authority is a critical stakeholder, and so keeping us informed would allow us to be able to support the project actually more easily. And just as a point of reference, the Groundwater Quality Bureau and the Petroleum Storage Tank Bureau send me letters all the time. In fact, today I got a letter on a site on Coors from the Groundwater Quality Bureau. So it's something that the NMED does do in other bureaus on a regular basis. I think it's a reasonable request, and it just helps build confidence and knowledge.
Well, thank you for sharing that. And I guess what can, I'll just speak for myself, what can I do to help? And if we can follow up offline on that too.
Madam Chair, Mayor Keller, I think that'd be a great conversation to have offline, and we would appreciate the support.
Okay, sounds good.
Thank you. Councillor Davis.
Madam Chair, thanks. I do have a few questions to follow up, both to the mayors and Ms. Agnew. I just want to clarify, I think we have some guests from NMED as well to present their update, and I'd love to hear from them before we dig in too many into some of these process questions a little bit, if that would be okay.
Yes, that's fine with me. It's just that we asked for questions after her presentation, so so I wanted to give everybody an opportunity to ask those questions. But yes, we do have OB 2013 New Mexico Environmental Department update on the Kirtland Air Force Base bulk fuel facility project. Ms. Stephanie Stringer with the New Mexico Environmental Department.
Good evening, Madam Chair and members. Thank you for the opportunity to allow me to provide an update from NMED's perspective. Before I get into my presentation, I think Diane's presentation and my presentation are great compliments. I truly appreciate the relationship that we have with Diane on this project. Having someone sort of hold us accountable, I think, is an important part of this project. And I think I'll address some of the issues that she brought up. And so certainly we'll take more questions after we get through just this quick update and we can delve deeper. Next slide, please. So this is just a picture of Kirtland to transition into what I'm talking about, giving you an update from NMED's perspective on the Kirtland Air Force Base bulk fuel spill. Next slide. Okay, before I go too much into the project, it's very dependent on the resources that we have available at NMED. And historically, over the last number of years, NMED's overall budget has decreased significantly. A recent ECOS, Environmental Council of States study determined that NMED's environmental programs have been cut around 30% over the last, I think their period was 5 years. And so the Environment Department here in New Mexico has really been gutted, and we do a lot of great work with very few resources, so we get very creative, but it's a definite issue. I will say that last December, we were able to finally propose an increase to our Hazardous Waste Bureau permit fees. So that definitely is providing some increases in revenue to fund the Hazardous Waste Bureau activities. We've also had an increase in some of the Department of Energy grants, but of course those go to Department of Energy projects. However, that's also counterbalanced by decreases in our EPA grant, which over the last 3 years has decreased by 25% and is expected to decrease another 10% over the next 10 years. And then, you know, who knows? We don't get a lot of general fund in the Hazardous Waste Bureau, so the state's not investing in this program. So we're relying on our fees and the grants that we get from the Department of Energy and the EPA. That being said, the fee increases are sufficient to fund the positions that we've got devoted to the Kirtland project. Our problem is now people. So last year, our focus on our challenges may have been more money related, but this year it's really a matter of getting warm bodies into the Hazardous Waste Bureau, getting them trained and up to speed, and keeping them. So we have a lot of competition from the national laboratories and private consulting firms that love to bring people in with regulatory experience, and of course they pay much higher than the state does. So it's a challenge to maintain staff that are up to speed on all of the different projects that we're managing. The Hazardous Waste Bureau currently has 35 positions. The section that devotes most of the work towards Kirtland is our permit section, and we've got 13 people devoted to those activities, and they include other huge projects, including some work on LANO, Department of Defense facilities like Cannon Air Force Base, Holloman Air Force Base, and the other large permitted facilities in the state. So we've got 13 positions that perform those activities, 2 of which are vacant right now. So having people is definitely a problem. But we're still going to make the best of what we can. And this is definitely a high priority project for this administration. So we're really devoting resources to Kirtland, but that does have an adverse effect in other areas of the state. So that means we can't be doing, you know, full work in other areas. So it's just a challenge that is a reality and important to bring to the context of this conversation. Next slide, please. I don't think I can advance the slides. There we go. Okay. Just a quick overview of what my guiding documents are and what my authority is in implementing the permit at Kirtland and the corrective action that's going on at the bulk fuel facility. So this all falls under the Federal Resource Conservation and Recovery Act, which is adopted in our statutes and regulations under the Hazardous Waste Act and the Hazardous Waste Permit and Corrective Action Fee regulations. And so Kirtland is a permitted facility. It's got the number there and a link to the Kirtland permit just for your reference only. But this is what governs the corrective action process and is, you know, all of the requirements that we're speaking to. Next slide, please. So this is going to be the focus of kind of the bulk of my talk, so to speak. This is the general overview of the corrective action process. So you start off with a facility assessment, which is basically just confirming that there is a release. That was done a long time ago, 1999, which, yeah, it's been quite some time. So after you confirm that there's a release, you move into the RCRA facility investigation. This is the RFI that Diane referred to in her presentation, and that's determining the nature and extent of the contamination, so you know exactly what you're facing when you go to select a remedy to clean it up. And after you have completely assessed the nature and extent of the contamination, you would then move into the corrective measures evaluation stage. And some of those activities are early on through some of the pilot studies that have been conducted at Kirtland. But it includes, evaluating options and identifying ultimately the preferred remedy to clean up the contamination. And then from there, you just go on to the final remedy selection. So the permittee, in this case, the Air Force, proposes, they do the corrective measures evaluation study. However, it's NMED that would actually select the final remedy, go through a public hearing process to vet that out, and that would be acted and decided upon. So, the liability lies with NMED. We've got to make sure we have all of the data and information that we need to select the right final remedy. And then after you've selected the final remedy and it's been approved through the public hearing process, you go into the corrective measures implementation, which is just implementing the remedies that have been selecting and monitoring and evaluating progress to make sure they're actually being successful. So that's an overview of the various steps in the process. And like Diane mentioned, it's been in the facility investigation stage for a long time. So we did recently approve the RFI Phase 1, and there were some issues with the Phase 1 investigation, but we essentially sort of want to carry those into Phase 2 so that we can kind of get a good picture of what the data gaps are, what needs to be done to completely analyze the nature and extent or determine the nature and extent of the contamination, and collect the data that we need to move into the corrective measures evaluation stage. When we came in under this administration, we did have some lofty goals, and we did put it out there that we were hopeful that the corrective measures evaluation could start in 2021. I think having caught up and gone through all the technical documents and sort of get a handle on what the backlog is, we're reevaluating what that time frame looks like right now. And Diane's right, it's not going to be 2021 when the corrective measures evaluation begins. So I'll speak more to kind of what we're doing to address that here in a second, but I'd like to move on to the next slide before I get into that conversation. So we definitely recognize that stakeholders are a huge component of the success of this process. And so we are working constantly to build these relationships. So we're the regulator at NMED. We're working directly with the permittee. And so over the past year or so, we've really worked to improve communication and clarify expectations between the regulator and permittee. And I am shifting some of my efforts now that that's kind of figured out, and we've implemented some new changes that I'll speak about, but we've got to figure out a better way to engage stakeholders. I've heard a lot of feedback that the monthly stakeholder meetings are not serving the purpose that they really are intended to serve, and the stakeholders aren't getting the information and getting the topics that they want discussed at these stakeholder meetings. And as a result of historic practices at these stakeholder meetings, a lot of stakeholders have disengaged and they don't trust that process or that particular meeting. And so I'm looking for ways to change that and how we can do a better job of engaging the stakeholder. We did establish a process to identify a step towards implementing a technical working group, and we're working through that. I would say it's been a little slower than any of us would like. I know Diane's ready to go with a few technical working groups, but I expect to see that to be a big change over the next year now that we've caught up on the backlog and we're working better with the permittee. And so we're going to try to improve in that area over the next year, both between the stakeholders and the public. So the ways that we're doing that, we're having planning and coordination meetings with the regulator, with the permittee and ourselves. Technical meetings, those are kind of whenever people want to dive deep into a topic, a technical topic, we're trying to accommodate that and having those conversations so that, we can engage in a meaningful manner in that way while still holding that regulator permittee relationship, within the authorities that we are bound to. And again, we'll be, I think, seeing some opportunities for technical working group meetings coming up in the very near future. And then we'll continue to have the public meetings and open houses that Kirtland tends to host and engaging with the public through those mechanisms. Next slide, please. This is just, an acknowledgement that there has been success. Diane had a great technical presentation, and this is just sort of an illustration of some of that work. There's definitely criticisms to share, but also acknowledging some of the successes is an important part of this process. I don't have the most current quarterly map in this presentation. I know there is a new one that we just got recently, but you can see that some of the interim measures that have been implemented, primarily the pump and treat, are showing results, and we're seeing a reduction in the EDB plume, albeit, acknowledging that there's potential data gaps there. But I do feel it's important to say that we're seeing progress on this on some level, but we've got a long way to go. So next slide, please. This is my last slide. So what we're doing to address all of these challenges that we've talked about here, the Air Force and NMED are working really hard to develop a master schedule. We want to include the key milestones. So that includes identifying what the data gaps are, working through what needs to be part of the RFI phase 2. So making sure we have all of the data and we've done all of the work that we need to do to move into the corrective measures evaluation. We want to establish timeframes and due dates for that, just to hold all of us accountable and be fully transparent with stakeholders. We're having scoping meetings prior to either disapproving or even planning out certain projects so that we can eliminate a lot of the back and forth between the letters that has been a historic challenge on this, where the regulator is primarily communicating via letter. And so we want to make sure we're doing that in a fully transparent way. So we're looking at improving that process and figuring out how we can engage with the stakeholders and in just understanding what's going on during those scoping meetings. That's not, I want to be clear, it's not necessarily something we want to open up to all of the stakeholders, but we want to share what's going on at those meetings. So it's not perceived to be a secret meeting between the regulators and the permittee, but there's just some issues that we need to work through in the regulatory realm that it's just not appropriate necessarily or productive to have stakeholders, but certainly we need to then take the outcome of those meetings to the stakeholders. So again, those are opportunities that we're looking at for how we can do a better job in the upcoming year to engage stakeholders. In addition to this master schedule, we're going to identify points at which the schedule must be reevaluated based on the new data that's coming in, so that the fact that the timetable will change is not a surprise to people. People will know that we will have to reevaluate that at certain points, and it may get extended if we identify new data gaps. So again, we just want to be fully transparent with that and not have it, well, why is the due date or the end date 2022 and now it's 2024? So we want to be clear about when those changes and evaluations will be made, so that it's, again, just not a surprise. So once we get through this planning process, we'll definitely take it to the stakeholders and the public and talk about it and get some feedback on kind of this master plan, so to speak. In addition to that, we have implemented efficiencies that I've kind of mentioned already, but we're improving communication and establishing very clear expectations. So like Diane mentioned, we have disapproved a number of documents that have come through. And I think that was part of the transition when under the previous administration, this project was moved to the science, I can't think of his title, the NMED's chief scientist, and he was managing this project, but it wasn't being managed under the Resource Conservation and Recovery Act that speaks to all of the requirements that you really have to go through in accordance with all of the regulations. So there was a disconnect there. And as we moved it back into the Hazardous Waste Bureau where it should be, some of the expectations were just reevaluated. So what the chief scientist had perhaps expected under his management of the project under RCRA and within the Hazardous Waste Bureau, we had to recalibrate. And so I think we've provided better guidance to the Air Force so that we can get better quality documents that are approvable with the first submission, and we're not having to disapprove and request changes. So I think we're going to see some efficiencies there. And just while I'm on the topic of the disapprovals, Diane and I have talked about copying the stakeholders on the correspondence, and I just got through a big slug of letters that went out to the Air Force. I haven't had any come through since she and I had that conversation. And so with the next round of letters, I'll be making sure that I would say at least the VA, I don't know the list of all of the stakeholders that were previously included on the correspondence, but I'm going to be adding the stakeholders back to that so that we can make sure that they're getting the letters. We also, regarding the administrative record, one of the positions that is vacant right now is our librarian. So Diane's right. We haven't been able to maintain our website and get the documents uploaded to that in a timely manner. So that's a challenge we're trying to overcome, as I believe there's an offer that has been made to the candidate for that position. So I'm hoping to have that position filled soon, and we can make sure we're getting all of the documents posted as quickly as possible. But again, I'll be adding the stakeholders to the correspondence that are going out from the Hazardous Waste Bureau. So that kind of summarizes at a higher level, not so technical as Diane's, but hopefully a good compliment to her presentation, and I stand for questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions? And if you can close the, thank you, Luz. Are there any questions? Councillor Davis.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Trigger, thank you so much for doing that. I do appreciate it. I realize that, and to be quite frank, as you mentioned, sort of inherited I would say a mess that hadn't been properly managed in totally in at least a year or so, at least new administration. And I appreciate very much Secretary Kenny. He met with us early on, gave that commitment to putting a regulator foot forward and leading with that. And I do appreciate it. I appreciate also that the administration and NMED is saying, of course, that they want to be careful about it. They want to be able to have frank conversations, I think is what I would say, with the permittee and be able to share that information out. I just want to say, we've heard, since my 5 years on the Water Board now, we've heard these issues about communication time and time again. And in fact, for the last 2 years, we've really struggled to get, as you know, to get data out of the Air Force Base about what was really submerged, what wasn't. And so I think, let me just ask, like, how does NMED specifically plan to re-include the Water Authority back into this process as a real partner at the table that we were in the beginning?
Madam Chair. Oh, sorry, just slow on my mute button. Madam Chair, Mr. Davis, that's a great question, and I think Diane are continuing to have those conversations. You know, we're starting out with some technical meetings, and then we're going to move into the technical working groups, and so those are two means by which we hope to improve the engagement. So I would say that there's not as many changes necessarily to the ways or the opportunities for engagement, but I want to make it more meaningful. So those stakeholder meetings, we have them monthly. They're a great opportunity. We've got people coming to those meetings, but as you know, the last year, it's 15 minutes updates on, you know, how many gallons have been treated. And, you know, it's just not a meaningful meeting. And so I want to make those meetings much more meaningful. I wasn't, you know, aware until Diane brought it to my attention that there were agenda items being proposed that weren't making it onto the agenda. That to me is completely unacceptable, because the process that they lay out is that you send your agenda items and we'll talk about them. So, you know, I want to use the tools that we have and improve them and make them better. And I'm definitely open to new ideas. If anyone wants to talk to me about how we can do a better job, I'm absolutely open to figuring that out. But for now, I'm going to just try to use the process and the mechanisms that we've got in existence and making them better.
Madam Chair, if I can follow one
Sure.
more question. And Ms. Stringer, thank you. And thanks for that. I know you and Ms. Agnew speak, and honestly, I've attended a few of those meetings in the past. The last one I attended has probably been more than a year ago now. And they had, and I appreciate that, they had gotten sort of a round robin update without a lot of pressure to take action and use that forum in the right way. So thanks for that. I appreciate it. Let me ask just really quickly, I'll try to put these two together then. You know, what specific steps can the Water Authority do to support NMED's role as the regulator to accelerate the progress of cleanup? And we've been asking now for more than 2 years from the Air Force, and NMED has supported us in this, for a real plan beyond, which includes fixing the wells, for example, that have been submerged for a while, and others. But what can the Water Authority do to support NMED in this process to accelerate this? And when can we actually expect final completion of remediation, which I know the Air Force has been reluctant to even begin conversations about, at least publicly?
Madam Chair, Mr. Davis, I think the next year will bring to light some more tangible items that we can seek support on. In the interim, we're looking at piggybacking off of the database that Diane's developed. So we've engaged on how the Hazardous Waste Bureau can use, you know, all of that work that's gone into having a comprehensive database. You know, when I found out my staff were slugging through 5,000 pages of hard copy data using a search function, that is certainly not efficient. And so that's when I was like, look, we've got to use ABCWA's database and identify ways that we can ensure we're checking on the quality and you know, addressing any perceptions that might be out there about manipulating data and those types of things that always come up. But I think there will be other opportunities like that, filling in data gaps where appropriate is going to come out as well, making sure, you know, we're combining our resources. So if it's something that the authority can provide and it serves the purpose of some of the projects that are going on at Kirtland, I think those are other opportunities. And then I think once we get moving after long last on technical working groups, you'll play an integral part in those working groups. Going over, I think one of the opportunities is looking at updating the conceptual site model and understanding what the flaws and criticisms are for the model that Kirtland is using, and having the model that you all employ to compare will be another opportunity where we can seek your support and help.
Thank you. Any other questions? Mayor Keller.
Yes, thank you so much, Madam Chair. And just a couple of follow-ups. Before I mention that too, Luce, I'm having some funny technical issues. So if you see me appear twice, just accept me in. Stephanie, thanks for offering to, follow up on that, chain of letter flow and just proactively reaching out on that. And I just had a couple of questions. When I think earlier in one of the presentations, we heard a sequence where the state would reject a plan. And I guess, could you interpret, what does that mean if they send you something and you reject it?
Madam Chair, Mayor Keller, typically it means the deliverable that they provided to us was deficient in some manner. Sometimes it has to do with the methods that are being proposed aren't sufficient. This is definitely a little more technical than, what I'm looking at my level. I certainly review the letters, but the comments that I see are, some of the well locations or sampling locations we don't agree with, and we want to get a different location for sampling. So there are usually technical deficiencies with the reports that are being provided that we need revisions in order to meet the objectives of what we're trying to accomplish with whatever document or deliverable it is that's being rejected. But we did recently provide a letter to the Air Force to go through, it's almost a checklist to make sure that they're going through that before they submit it to us to minimize the rejections. So I'm hoping we don't have to reject as many in the future. And the Air Force has acknowledged that the quality of some of their deliverables has been deficient. And so they've implemented a new position that oversees some of that and goes through the quality control checks that they've implemented. And part of it is so many people are reading different pieces of it, and you need someone to pull everything together and reconcile it, both on their end and our end. So those are primarily the issues that relate to the rejections or disapprovals.
Okay. Thank you for that. And, whatever is appropriate, but at least with water authority staff, if there's even staff to staff way to kind of at least frame what those are for or what they're not. And, I think it can help put the public at ease if everyone knows it's some technical issue about whatever, or if it's not, I think there is a opportunity for the public to hold the base accountable for, submitting some reports that you can actually approve. And even for us to be helpful. I wanted to ask a second question just around the stakeholder meetings. And I personally remember these, as some of us do. And, whoever mentioned too, that how mind numbing it can be to sit through 20 minutes on, whatever sort of minutia they're going through. One of the interesting related issues early on is the contractor presenting or the base. And, early on, it was actually just the contractor and the advocates and myself, we all fought to have the base, someone from the base be there. And this was back in the Shaw days, which is what it was called then. And now it seems like, interestingly, it's kind of flipped where the contractor is not there. And I was just curious, if you know of a real reason for that, or it's just the way it's evolved.
Madam Chair, Mayor Keller, I don't necessarily know the reason for that. I think we just need to figure out who the best and most appropriate people are at meetings and bring them to the table. I wasn't as aware of that change. I just sort of came into it and assumed that's how it had been because they're the permittee. So I'll definitely pursue kind of understanding why contractors aren't attending, and if there's a reason that we can, or a way we can change that. I think it's worth having the conversation with the Air Force. So that's a little bit of a new issue that I will put some effort towards. Better understanding and seeing if changes need to be made.
Sure. Well, thank you for that. And I would just offer, and we can follow up offline, but the commanders, at least in my experience, there has been a correlation between like commander awareness and participation versus not. And we've rotated through commanders, but I've had a lot of meetings, as I'm sure many of us have, with the current commander, and he's always been great. I've never thought to bring any of this up, but I mean, I think if there are just high level issues we can help iron out more from the top down, in that hierarchical military framework, I think it's worth reaching out, and I would follow really Mark's guidance and your team in terms of what's helpful for engagement. But if something is helpful, I'm happy to follow your lead.
Thank you, Mayor. Did you want to add to that?
Madam Chair, Mayor Keller, if I may, I agree with you, and I think Secretary Kinney has worked really hard to have a good relationship with Colonel Miller. I guess one suggestion I have would be to invite them to provide their perspective as well. We've got a stakeholders perspective, the regulators perspective, and having the actual permittee come to a meeting like this would be another mechanism by which we can just build the communication improvements and establish better relationships, and have an opportunity to ask some good hard questions to me or to the Air Force.
Yes. Thank you. And actually, if there's no other questions, I won't belabor this, but I just do remember a few years back, and I'm wishing Commissioner Stebbins was here right now to to refresh my memory on some of these things. But actually, I remember a few years ago we had kind of like a celebratory water authority meeting talking about some of the successes that we've had. And it seems as though since that, and it was a very official meeting, we had I don't know who all rankings there, but it was pretty significant. And I think people were feeling that things were moving forward, and it felt as though maybe we needed to just ease off a little bit. And I think maybe that's what's created this kind of a little bit of a disengagement. So I agree. I think that what we need to do is, invite them back to the Water Authority and just have a conversation about, really making sure that this continues to be a priority, because it obviously I've always deferred to Commissioner Stebbins and now Councillor Davis and Piscotti on this issue, but this affects the city as a whole in our water. So I think it's a really important topic. Thank you, ladies, for all your hard work. Lots of information. And if there are no other questions, again, thank you for being here, Mayor. And this meeting is adjourned. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.